Hey everybody out there, this is Seto, and today for you guys we'll be doing a deck profile of one of my favorite decks of all time. It is probably in my top 10 favorite decks of all time, and that is my Spellbook deck. As you will probably see as I go through this deck profile, I don't have super max rarity Spellbooks, but over the course of time, ever since this deck originally came out back in the day, and I started building it, I have max rarity as much as I can of the deck over the period of time. So yeah, enjoy that in the deck profile. But you know, originally I wanted to build this deck a long time ago because of Priestess of Prophecy. I thought it was just when I saw it as a secret rare, and I got them from buddies of mine back in the day. That's why I have the first ed ones. I said I want to build this deck strictly because of this card, because it just looks so beautiful as a secret rare. It's probably one of my favorite secrets of all time, just for the artwork design, to be honest. But as time went on and I started playing the deck as I was putting it together, you know, years ago, I found out that it wasn't just the artwork of the deck and how beautiful it looked as a deck. It was actually the play style of the deck that I love, and I got to play a little bit of this deck doing Dragon Rulers. The deck I mainly used my buddy's Spellbook deck because he had it all bling out. He had the judgments and everything of that nature. I did not. But yeah, I played this deck a lot, and this was one of my favorite. Like I said, this is one of my favorite decks of all time. Saying that, there's a bunch of different ways you can play your Spellbook deck, guys. Some people like Winwich, some people like Jowgen control still with this deck. There's a ton of different ways to play your Spellbook deck. In my way, it's a little bit of stun, but it's mainly just good old-fashioned Spellbooks with a bit of stun element in the deck thrown in, which for the most part has worked out pretty well for me. So first off, I run 2 High Priestess of Prophecy. Like I said, this is by far probably one of my favorite secret rares of all time, and is the original reason why I wanted to build the deck. I think she's beautiful, but also just artistically, the card just pops at me as a secret rare. But this card is still good. You don't run it as a 3 of anymore. Those days are long past because it can brick. But as a 2 of, it's still good. There's a bunch of different ways you can get it out onto the field, and it's still very easy and very versatile of a card. But instead of running the 3rd Priestess of Prophecy, we are running the World of Prophecy instead. Now, some people, and I will say this for myself, I used to run it too, used to run DMOC, Dark Magician of Chaos. You can still run that, even the eroded version, in this deck if you want to, but as time has gone on, World of Power, World of Prophecy has gotten better and better over time, but you have to get the problem I have with this card. The only reason I've always been hesitant of running this card, even in modern era, is because hand traps can really stop this card very easily. Besides that point, it's a great card, so you can either run DMOC or this, depending upon what you want to do. But I do like the 1 World of Prophecy and the 2 High Priestess. I feel that's pretty staple. I'm not going to go into too much detail with this deck because Spellbooks have been around for long enough that you probably know how they play. They mainly are going to be a spell-oriented deck. They don't run that many traps, if any, if they ever do. But they're mainly just very, you know, they use a lot of different spells, and they have a great draw and great search power. So next we have our 3 Little Boy Blue, aka Spellbook Magician of Prophecy. I only have 1 ultimate rare, alas, but at least I have 1 first ed. Little Boy Blue, aka Spellbook of Prophecy, is a searcher for this deck. He's also going to work well with your Spellbook of Knowledge if need be, because you can either tribute off him to search with, you know, to activate Knowledge's effect. That does happen. Or because, say you get his effect off, you search. He combos well with another card, which, like I said, we do run an element of stun in this deck, Silent Magician. If you own this card, I find it works very well in this deck out of a lot of spellcaster decks. If you don't own this card because it is expensive and has never gotten a reprint, Konami needs to reprint it, just saying, then I understand you probably running a different variation of this deck, probably. But if you have them, it's very good in this deck to run, because you can search something off, then you contribute this off and bring out your Silent Magician, which is a very good card in itself. But 3 Little Boy Blue. Next we run 3 Magician Souls. Again, an expensive card. I completely understand if you're not running this card. There are other cards you can run in this deck. Ash Blossoms, maybe you want to fit Noblemen into your deck if you want to go down that route. There are other cards you can run, but because I own the card and I use it for my Dark Magician decks, etc., and other decks out there, this card is very staple in this deck as a 3 of because. Very good card, very useful, especially in this deck, and it's a staple 3 of if you own it. Next, I run 3 Temperance of Prophecy. You do not need to run Temperance of Prophecy if you don't want to, especially because you're running Magician's Soul, but I still find that Temperance is still good. You just got to make sure that when you activate it, it doesn't get negated. That is an issue. Back when Call by the Grave was a 3 of, when it was a 3 of, this card was a lot better because you could protect it. But still, even now, because of the different ways you can do it, if it gets negated, like I've literally gone, okay, I'll bait something out with it, and then I'll use some other play, some other searchers, maybe, you know, to go off with. There's ways of getting this card's effect off and not have to worry about effect failures and Ash Blossoms. If you're worried about Ash Blossoms, which are a little bit more common, you can bait things out by using a Spellbook of Secrets or some other card and then bring this card out and then go off with it. There's ways of baiting this card out so it doesn't have a higher chance of getting hit if you know how to play your cards properly. But still, I like the card as a 3 of in this deck. You don't have to run it as a 3 of if you don't want to. Next, I run 3 Silent Magician. Again, like I said, this card is super expensive right now, to my knowledge, last time I checked. But hopefully it gets reprinted someday. This card's so very good in this deck. It's super easy to get out. If you get this out and then you bring out, you know, there's different ways. This card's just such a good stun card. And if it gets destroyed, yeah, cool. You get to bring out a Silent Magician level 8. And this card in itself can be powered up by Spellbook of Power. It can be protected by Wisdom. It's just a great card for negation. Against certain decks, that one negation can be really useful. But yeah, that's just the Silent Magician package I run in the deck. You don't run the spell card or anything, but it's a really good card, and I love the artwork of this card as well. Next up, we run 2 Jowgen the Spiritualist. This is not Jowgen control. I want to make that completely clear, but Jowgen's just such a good card in general. You might as well run it because it's still that powerful of a card still. And we do run cards in this deck like Power of the Guardians in this deck, which is really nice that you can protect it with it. But the cool thing is Power of the Guardians can protect your other cards as well in this deck. So it's not just going to be for Jowgen. At best, it's really good for Jowgen. But if you need to, you can use Power of the Guardians and other cards, and it's a spell card, so it's going to count to other things. So, just saying, Jowgen's really good in this deck as a 3 of at the end of the day. You can run 3 of if you don't run the Silent Magicians, but I like it just as a 2 of. I don't find it as a 3 of to be as necessary, really, for me. Next, I run 3 Spellbook of Secrets. Yes, I have the ultimate rare first eds. Again, like I said, some of this deck is really blinged out because I bought these cards back in the day and was building the deck years ago. But 3 Spellbook of Secrets is a staple in this deck. This is one of your main searchers for a lot of your Spellbook cards and things. Great, great card. Great searcher for this deck overall. In addition to that, we run a draw card, which you guys are probably all familiar with because you sometimes splashed it into other Spellbook deck, spellcaster-based decks. Spellbook of Knowledge. Spellbook of Knowledge is your draw card for your deck. Works out very well with this deck overall. Really something this deck needed. It had searching, but it needed some draw power to just power through things and get through things. So I definitely am so glad they made this card a couple years ago, but staple 3 of in the deck. Next, we run 3 Spellbook of Fate. Spellbook of Fate is a staple 3 of, in my opinion. Some people run 2 of it still. I get why you're running 2 of this card. But at the end of the day, it's so versatile. It's so useful. I like it as a 3 of in this deck. So 3 Spellbook of Fate. I'll find an ultimate rare one of these days, but I just haven't got around to it. Next, I run 2 Spellbook of Power. Now, this is debatable. This is really debatable, to be honest with you. You could run 2 Spellbook of Power or 1 Spellbook of Power. And if I wasn't running Silent Magician and some other spellcasters that I'm going to be utilizing a lot, I would probably just run this as a 1 of. But because of Silent Magician, because of other cards, and because of certain situations that have come up time and time and time again on the regular and in multiple duels, I like Power as a 2-of. It's very useful. So for that reason, I'm running Power as a 2-of. But if you want it as a 1-of, I understand why. But for me personally, from playing this deck, I really like Power as a 2-of. 3-of is no, we don't run that anymore. But 2 Power has always worked out for me ever since I started running the Silent Magician package a couple years ago. Next off, we run 2 Spellbook of the Masters. I feel like you could either run this card as a 1 or 2-of. It's really debatable along with some of the other Spellbook cards we'll talk about in a second, the different ratios you could run them at. It just depends how you're building your Spellbook deck when it comes to these cards. I mean, I think we all can agree 3 knowledge, 3 secrets, and then from there it kind of becomes, okay, what is your Spellbook deck focusing on to the ratios that you'll be running in said Spellbook deck, just saying. But 2 Spellbook of Masters for me. Along with that, I'm running 2 Grand Spellbook of Towers. Some people like 1-of, some people like 2-of. I've seen one guy run 3-of that I personally know. But me personally, I think this is a 1 or 2-of card in this deck. Still a powerful card even nowadays for helping recycle stuff and whatnot. But I feel that it, like, again, depends on your build and what you're trying to do. I like it as a 2-of personally. Next, 1 Spellbook of Wisdom. This is a staple 1-of, I think, in any Spellbook deck for protection. 1 Spellbook of Eternal. This I've seen people run as a 2-of recently. I think that's perfectly fine if that's the way you want to play your Spellbook deck, but that's up to you. I've seen people run 1 Power and then double Eternal usually, but again, that's up to you to decide. 1 Spellbook of Life. This card's very useful. It's pretty much your Monster Reborn-esque card for your Spellbooks. That's searchable, so you run it. But that's all for your Spellbook engine. Now on to the generic spells, quote-unquote. 2 Power of the Guardian, like I said. This works with Jowgen. This works with some other cards to give protection. It's a really nice card to have. Like, don't discount this card. If you're familiar with Duel Links, you know how powerful this card is, but that's not the reason why I'm even running it. It's just really good in this deck for certain cards. And lastly, the last 2 spell cards we run is 1 Called by the Grave for some protection, and 1 Upstart Goblin to make it a 39-card deck. It's a spell card. It's great. I don't care about giving you life points as long as I'm drawing to other cards. So that is the deck in a nutshell. We'll get on to the extra deck now, guys. We run our Field Center because it's a spellcaster-based deck. I got to run this girl. I also run one of my tokens I run in this deck from Fairy Tale. You probably recognize who that is. So let's get into this. We run 2 Crowley, the first Prophesier. Some people run 2-of, some people run 3-of. It's really up to you. 1 Link Karibo, 1 Relinquish Anima, 1 Salamangreat All Mirage, 1 Selene, Queen of Master Magicians. I feel like, personally, these 3 right here are the main things you need to run. Selene and Crowley are probably the most common Link monsters I go into, for the most part. Everything else is extra. 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Cerberus, 1 Phoenix. In addition to that, we run 1 Unicorn, 1 Blackluster Soldier of Chaos. This is really good because sometimes you will go into this because of your big monsters, so it's really useful. 1 Sayuja Skulldread. This is just for certain combo plays you can go off with. Same thing with Borlord Savage. Sometimes you want to OTK right then and there. And Axis Code Talker is good for cracking boards if need be. I also won 1 number 11 Big Eye because in case you have 2 High Priestess of Prophecy on the field, you can go into Big Eye. I mean, this used to be plays back in the day, but it happens from time to time, I will be honest. So that's why I still run the Big Eye in the extra deck, but that's up to you to decide. The extra deck, like I said, is pretty free reign to do what you want to do, but that's up to you to decide. But I hope you guys all enjoyed this deck profile. Like I said, this deck is super fun. It's definitely in my top 10 favorite decks in my opinion, and I've always loved this deck for its aesthetic artwork, if anything else. And like I said, there's different ways of playing your Spellbook deck. There's different ratios you can run and play around with. But Hopefully this video was helpful for you guys. And until next time, take care. Have fun dueling. Good luck dueling to all of you guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a thumbs up down below and subscribe to the channel for more awesome deck profiles and videos. We have some Halloween special decks we'll be working on in the near future. I thought this deck, being Spellcasters, would be a good way of kicking it off. So expect some zombie deck profiles coming out in the near future for this month of October. To next time, guys, good luck dueling to all of you. See you all next time.